Okay, here we go. Kinesiology 230, Chapter 4, still on biomechanics, talking about work and power with this presentation. This is presentation number 4, so let's get into it. This is what we've gone through so far. We've gone through all this. Now we're down here to work and power, and we're going to jump right in. So with work, the way I always describe this when I'm in class and I'm trying to describe it to students just starting off, it's the ability to exert force or do some type of work. Like, for example, on the left-hand side of the screen here, you think about pushing a boulder across the floor. You're doing work. We can define how much that boulder weighs. If it's flat, we can come up with a coefficient of friction, etc. But if it's round, we can come up with the amount of friction that the contact has on the floor. Long story short, we can determine what the workload is by the weight of the boulder and how far you push it across the floor. Now, if we ask you to push that boulder uphill, that'll be more work. Same weight, right? Same surface, it'll just be more work. If we go ahead and have that boulder going downhill, it'll obviously be less work because gravity will take over and help you out. The difference you have is when we talk about power, you're exerting a force, you're still pushing that boulder, but it incorporates a component of time. So it's basically work divided by time. And it's a component where if I ask you to push that boulder, but I ask you to push the boulder faster, or if I ask you to push it in the shortest amount of time, now we're asking you to create more power. And that's like one of the key differences between work and power. So if we look at these two, we have a squat on one side, which is very much work oriented. We're lifting some weights. And over here you have power. It's a box jump. Let's see if this works. Plain old boring squat, dropping down, coming up, knee, hip flexion, extension, knee, and hip flexion, extension. Got it. You also have some work going on in the ankle as well. If you go to box jumps, pretty straightforward. Hips and knees are bending. Come on. Up. But it's more explosive. And it's a little bit different because I'm actually jumping on something, so there's a component of having to overcome gravity to land on a box. But my point to you is the power component with this comes with the counter movement of dropping my hips down and bending my knees. And what you'll see later on, going through a stretch shortening cycle to be able to then jump up on that box. But that's very, very similar in terms of the movement pattern. Just one is more explosive and the one is more strength oriented. Let's go ahead and move on here. All right, same thing with this. When we look at like a medicine ball wood chop, this is just a plain old boring wood chop movement pattern. Nothing to it. We get over to here, this is a little bit more explosive. You're throwing the ball down, right? So like we talked about before, one is the movement pattern, the other one is the explosive version of that. Strength oriented, and then the other being power oriented. Got it? All right, so with athletic movement, it's always performed at a higher velocity, and therefore there's always a higher power requirement. You have to train the body to be able to handle the rigors of a particular sport. And the training for sport activities, the athlete has to really understand the demands of the sport, and so too does the coach or strength and conditioning coach. And so the big takeaway here is if you want to train to be explosive and powerful, then you need to train to be explosive, You need to train to be powerful in your sport. That's probably a more concise way to say it. And it's really a matter of coming down to like doing movement prep and making sure your body is ready to handle some of the forces involved, because those forces involved in the system, meaning the human body, go up almost exponentially when you start to add force. Now, on the fitness side of the house, they're usually more generalized for the general public. They're performed at lower rates of speed. They really don't optimize power all that much. And, power incorporates force, if you will, or work divided by time. If a person becomes stronger, then they will have the potential to be more powerful. But you have to bridge that gap between strength and power by implementing in workouts that heighten the power response that you're looking for with your athletes or even your people. But it comes down to you having good and prudent programming for your athletes or your personal training clients. And this also has its place within the rehabilitation area as well, because you have some clients in the rehab area where they have to work on power to be able to move more effectively. All right, guys, I'm going to break off of this and go to the next one.